Star Trek wasn't merely a television program, it was a profound cultural phenomenon, a daring venture into the unknown that ignited the imaginations of millions and spawned a multi-billion-dollar empire. From blockbuster films and numerous spin-off series to dedicated fan conventions, it cemented its place as one of the most iconic science fiction universes ever conceived. Yet, before the legendary Captain Kirk assumed command of the USS Enterprise, another captain graced the pilot episode. He was portrayed as strong, intelligent, and poised for greatness. So, why did he vanish without a trace? The complete narrative eluded most fans for years. Join us as we delve deeper into the show, its remarkable cast, and the unsettling truth behind the original captain's quiet replacement, uncovering numerous hidden secrets even the most devoted fans may not know. A show that changed everything. Star Trek premiered in 1966, transcending the typical science fiction offering to become the genesis of a colossal media franchise that permeated pop culture worldwide. Conceived by the visionary Gene Roddenberry, the inaugural series, titled Star Trek, the original series first aired in Canada before making its US debut on NBC. It chronicled the epic voyages of the USS Enterprise, a starship traversing the cosmos in the 23rd century. Their mandate was clear: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Roddenberry drew inspiration from diverse sources, including the classic film Forbidden Planet, Jonathan Swift's satirical masterpiece Gulliver's Travels, and even classic Western television shows like Wagon Train. His ambition was to fuse thrilling space adventure with profound moral and ethical lessons. Over time, the Star Trek universe expanded exponentially, encompassing a multitude of movies, spin-off television series, video games, novels, and comic books, solidifying its status as one of the highest-grossing franchises of all time. After the original series concluded, the beloved characters continued their sagas in an animated series and 6 major feature films. Subsequently, new television shows like Star Trek: The Next Generation, Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, and Star Trek Enterprise sustained the narrative. Each of these series was set in a distinct temporal period, but meticulously maintained its connection to the overarching original universe. In 2009, Star Trek experienced a rejuvenation with a new series of films set in an alternate timeline, famously known as the Kelvin Timeline. Concurrently, a new wave of television shows, including Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and Star Trek Picard, became available on digital streaming platforms. Some of these new narratives served as prequels to the original series, while others ventured far into the future, as far as the 32nd century. Star Trek evolved beyond a mere series. It blossomed into a self-contained universe of unparalleled depth and scope. However, prior to its monumental success, the original show faced considerable challenges. It endured for only 3 seasons during its initial run, but it was through subsequent reruns that it truly found its audience and became a resounding hit. Despite its enduring popularity, many fans remain unaware of the intricate story behind the original cast and the dramatic events that unfolded behind the scenes. A crew that looked like the future. What truly distinguished Star Trek wasn't solely its exhilarating space battles or its diverse array of strange alien species. It was the human element, the remarkable crew. The complement of the USS Enterprise was envisioned as a unified team, representing a multitude of global backgrounds working in harmony. This vision was groundbreaking and highly unusual for American television in the 1960s. The crew featured a Japanese helmsman, Sulu, portrayed by George Takei, a black communications officer, Ura, played by Nichelle Nichols, a Russian navigator, Chekhov, embodied by Walter Koenig, a Scottish engineer, Scotty, brought to life by James Doohan, and even an alien first officer, Spock, masterfully played by Leonard Nimoy. It was, in essence, a United Nations team soaring through the cosmos. This powerful message of unity resonated deeply, particularly amidst the backdrop of protests, war, and the ongoing civil rights struggles in the real world. Star Trek presented a hopeful vision of a future where individuals from all walks of life collaborated peacefully. This simple yet profound idea inspired fans and propelled the show to extraordinary heights. Yet, behind the scenes, harmony was not always the prevailing sentiment. The cast worked diligently, but they also confronted their own personal and professional challenges. While some actors achieved widespread stardom, others grappled with the aftermath. For some, Star Trek provided their pivotal big break. For others, it inadvertently typecast them, limiting the range of roles they were offered in their subsequent careers. Nevertheless, the show's influence continued to expand. Fans of all denominations, whether identifying as Trekkies or Trekkers, meticulously followed every aspect of the franchise, from individual episodes to comic books and fan conventions. Star Trek even boasted its own theme park attraction in Las Vegas for a decade and continues to feature traveling museum exhibits globally. It was more than just a television show. For countless fans, it became a way of life. Martin Luther King Jr. and the power of a single role, one of the most astonishing behind the scenes anecdotes revolves around Nichelle Nichols, the actress who brilliantly portrayed Lieutenant Uhura. She was a trailblazer, one of the first black women to secure a significant role on television that transcended the stereotypical portrayals of maids or servants. Despite this groundbreaking achievement, after the inaugural season, she harbored a desire to depart the show, her true aspiration being to perform on Broadway. Consequently, she informed Gene Roddenberry of her intention to resign. Roddenberry, surprisingly, did not argue. Instead, he implored her to reflect on her decision over the weekend, urging her to consider the profound message Star Trek was conveying to the world. That pivotal weekend, a life-altering encounter transpired. Nichols attended a fundraiser for the NAACP, where she met none other than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yes, that Dr. King. He greeted her with a warm smile and declared himself her biggest fan, emphasizing the immense importance of her character on Star Trek to people like him and his family. When Michelle confided her plans to leave the show, Dr. King emphatically stopped her, exclaiming, "You cannot do that. Don't you understand what this man Roddenberry has achieved?" He stressed that this was the first instance where black people were depicted on television with the dignity and respect they deserved, not as mere background figures but as leaders and equals. He passionately stated, "This is the only show that my wife Coretta and I will allow our little children to stay up and watch." That single conversation irrevocably altered her decision. She remained with the show, forever cementing her place in television history. Star Trek's bright future. Tough aftermath. Although Star Trek eventually became a resounding success in reruns, its initial broadcast run lasted only 3 seasons. Once the series concluded, William Shatner, who portrayed Captain Kirk, found it exceedingly difficult to secure compelling roles. He was severely typecast, meaning audiences and casting directors alike primarily saw him as Captain Kirk, making them reluctant to hire him for other projects. Compounding his professional struggles, he had recently endured a divorce that left him in dire financial straits, with little money to his He was broke and had no alternative but to accept any work that came his way. This included appearing in television commercials for products such as Promise Margarine and Loblaws supermarkets, and even starring in a low-budget film titled Big Bad Mama. In his book The 50-Year Mission, Shatner candidly admitted, "There was a time before Star Trek when I wouldn't accept a role that I didn't think worthwhile enough to play." However, after Star Trek, his financial predicament rendered it impossible to decline work. He confessed, "I had to accept a lot of things that I wouldn't have done in an earlier day." Slowly, throughout the 1970s, his fortunes began to improve. His significant breakthrough, marking a resurgence in his career, arrived in 1979 with the release of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. From that point forward, his career trajectory once again soared. Yet Shatner was not the sole cast member to struggle in the aftermath of Star Trek. Other actors also confronted their own battles. Typecasting was a pervasive issue, affecting nearly everyone. Even James Doohan, the beloved actor who played Scotty, faced the same predicament as Shatner, and perhaps even more acutely. He became so intrinsically linked with the Scottish engineer character that people found it impossible to envision him as anyone else. After completing a film titled Man in the Wilderness with Richard Harris in 1971, he returned to Hollywood and began attending auditions. However, producers would invariably address him as Scotty, before regrettably informing him, "Sorry, we don't have a part for a Scotsman." The ironic truth was that he had only employed a Scottish accent once prior to Star Trek. He performed in 40-50 live television shows and 4,000 radio shows utilizing a myriad of other voices. But none of that previous experience seemed to matter anymore. By 1971, he was utterly broke and unable to secure work precisely because of his iconic role in Star Trek. Fortuitously, Doohan discovered a new avenue: personal appearances. He began attending fan events, signing autographs, and engaging with the dedicated individuals who cherished the show. This kept him afloat, and much like Shatner, his luck took a dramatic turn when the Star Trek movies began production. Finally, it became feasible to earn a living from his association with Star Trek. He often stated that his story vividly illustrated how a single role could propel an actor to fame, but simultaneously entrap them. And for fans, it served as a poignant reminder that the talented individuals behind their favorite characters faced very real struggles. Big voices, big help, and a bit of fame. One of the most beloved pastimes among fans and comedians alike is impersonating William Shatner. His distinctive dramatic pauses and unique cadence of speech during the original Star Trek became an indelible part of popular culture. The first comedian to truly master the impression was Kevin Pollak, who later gained acclaim for his role as Moishi Maisel in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Shatner's style was so singular that it, much like the show itself, became ingrained in the cultural lexicon. However, beneath the playful impressions and widespread fame, there were serious moments and pivotal decisions that profoundly shaped the series. One such moment originated from the legendary Lucille Ball. Following her divorce from DC Arnaz, she assumed control of Desilu Studios. It was Ball who ultimately gave Star Trek the crucial green light. At the time, the studio was not producing many new shows. According to Mark Cushman, author of These Are the Voyages, Lucy famously declared, "We need to get more shows on the air." She chose Star Trek because she perceived it as remarkably different and innovative. Cushman also noted that Ball frequently pondered, what would Desi do? She firmly believed that Arnaz would prioritize producing shows they owned, rather than merely creating content for other companies. This conviction led her to take a calculated risk on Star Trek, envisioning it as something akin to I Love Lucy, a show that would enjoy countless reruns for years to come. Her foresight proved accurate, as both shows have remained on air for decades. Despite her vision, Ball eventually found herself without the necessary capital to sustain Desilu. Consequently, she was compelled to sell the studio to Paramount, and Star Trek was a significant part of that transaction. Following this acquisition, the show blossomed into the global phenomenon we recognize today. But that wasn't the only surprising decision made behind the scenes. A common behind-the-scenes fact often circulated among fans is that Star Trek introduced a Russian character due to a complaint from the Soviet newspaper Pravda. Gene Roddenberry frequently recounted the story, but the truth was far more nuanced. A memo from 1966 clearly indicates Roddenberry's desire to appeal to a younger demographic. They aimed to capture the same audience that enthusiastically embraced the monkeys. Thus, they created Chekhov, a young, energetic Russian character portrayed by Walter Koenig. The entire narrative about Pravda was, according to Koenig, all just publicity. He further clarified that they wanted somebody who would appeal to 8 to 14-year-olds, and the decision was to make him Russian. That was it. No politics. Then came the highly anticipated Star Trek movie in 1979. The entire original cast was slated to return, with one significant exception, Leonard Nimoy. He initially refused to participate. Paramount had been utilizing his likeness in advertisements and on merchandise without providing any compensation, leading to his resolute refusal. Director Robert Wise's daughter famously implored him, "With no Spock, there can be no Star Trek." Nimoy's absence was a colossal issue, threatening to derail the entire film. And then there's arguably the wildest story of all. In 1975, Gene Roddenberry penned a script for a potential movie titled The God Thing. The audacious premise involved Captain Kirk confronting a powerful alien entity that claimed to be God. The studio ultimately passed on the concept. However, years after Roddenberry's passing, the story was adapted into a novel by Michael Jan Friedman. The notion of Jesus potentially engaging in a cosmic confrontation with Captain Kirk was not a jest. It was a seriously considered idea. But all of these intriguing narratives, from the potential absence of Spock to the contemplation of God like aliens, merely scratched the surface. For there was one story that few fans anticipated, a narrative concerning the original captain who was abruptly and silently replaced. Before Kirk, there was Captain Pike. Before William Shatner became synonymous with the face of Star Trek, another captain led the USS Enterprise in the very first pilot episode. His name was Captain Christopher Pike, portrayed by the accomplished actor Jeffrey Hunter. At the time, Jeffrey Hunter was a well-established actor known for his clean-cut image, strong screen presence, and his status as a matinee idol. When Gene Roddenberry initially conceived Star Trek, he selected Hunter to spearhead the show as the captain of the USS Enterprise. Hunter starred in the inaugural pilot episode, aptly titled The Cage. His portrayal of Pike was characterized by seriousness, emotional depth, and a palpable undercurrent of anger. The episode's plot depicted Pike being ensnared by enigmatic aliens on a distant planet named Talos IV. These extraterrestrials employed potent mind tricks in an attempt to manipulate and control Pike. Their objective was to compel him to remain on their planet and initiate a new human colony, utilizing elaborate illusions to ensnare him. However, Pike remained steadfast and defiant. He exhibited anger, hatred, and unyielding resistance, emotions that the Talosians, despite their powers, struggled to comprehend. Hunter's performance in the role was remarkably powerful. He gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and steadfastly refused to yield. While some rumors circulated that his performance was too intense for television audiences, this was, in fact, untrue. Quite the opposite, his work was gripping and unforgettable. Yet, when Star Trek was granted a second opportunity with a new pilot episode, Hunter did not return. Instead of simply recasting Captain Pike, Roddenberry made a bold decision. He created an entirely new captain, James T. Kirk. Most fans later encountered portions of The Cage, when its footage was cleverly repurposed within a two-part episode titled The Menagerie. In that later version, Viewers learned that Pike had suffered severe injuries, leaving him confined to a wheelchair and unable to speak. Actor Sean Kenny portrayed the older, damaged version of Pike. In The Menagerie, Spock endeavors to assist his former captain in returning to the Telosians, where the aliens' illusions would enable Pike to live out the remainder of his life in peace. Although Jeffrey Hunter did not return for this segment, his character was afforded a poignant and fitting conclusion within the show's narrative. But what became of the actor himself? Why did he not continue his journey with Star Trek? This is where the story becomes a bit convoluted. What really happened behind the scenes? The official explanation at the time was straightforward: Jeffrey Hunter was simply unavailable for the second Star Trek pilot. However, the truth, according to numerous individuals intimately involved with the show, was far from simple. One account came directly from William Shatner. He claimed that Gene Roddenberry once confided in him about problems with Hunter and his wife. Shatner recalled Roddenberry complaining about tantrums, restrictions, and ultimatums being laid out on the table. Consequently, rather than enduring such stress, Roddenberry opted to move forward and replace the captain. However, not everyone concurs with this version of events. Some sources, such as the Star Trek Encyclopedia, simply state that Hunter was unavailable. Others, like Brian J. Robb in A Brief Guide to Star Trek, assert that NBC was not particularly fond of Hunter in the role, and that Hunter himself was not overly enthusiastic about being bound to a potentially long-running television series. Because of these factors, his contract was not renewed when the second pilot was approved. Yet, one interview provides even greater insight into the situation. The blog Fact Trek shared audio from an early fan convention featuring Oscar Katz, who served as executive vice president at Desilu Studios, discussing what truly transpired. According to Katz, Jeffrey Hunter had not even seen his episode, The Cage. When the studio made the decision to film a second pilot, the studio had already invested over $500,000 in filming it, so they were keen to have Hunter return. Before he made a definitive decision, a private screening was arranged for him. Gene Roddenberry, Oscar Katz, and Herb Solow were all present. They watched the footage together in a spacious screening room at Desilu, hoping to entice Hunter back. But after viewing the pilot, Hunter never returned to the series. So, what precisely went wrong? The wife who changed everything. Many observers believe that Jeffrey Hunter's wife at the time, Joan Bartlett, was the primary reason for his non-return. Leonard Nimoy corroborated this in his 1995 autobiography, I Am Spock, stating that Jeff Hunter was let go when his wife began to represent him and made what Gene considered excessive demands. Nimoy further noted that he was the only actor from the first pilot who returned, precisely because of this issue. Shatner also recounted a similar perspective in his own book Star Trek Memories, published in 1993. In that volume, he contended that the official story of Hunter simply being unavailable was not entirely accurate. Shatner wrote, "In truth, Hunter wasn't so much unable to commit to the series as he was fired." He elaborated that there were no issues during the actual filming, but once the episode was completed, things took a turn. According to Shatner, Hunter's wife suddenly began appearing at production meetings. She expressed significant dissatisfaction with the pilot episode. He claimed she would storm into Gene Roddenberry's office and start making wild demands. One of her specific requests was that Jeffrey must only be shot from certain angles. It appeared she sought greater control over her husband's career, and Roddenberry was unwilling to contend with such complications. Therefore, instead of retaining the same actor or even the same character, Roddenberry made an audacious decision. He conceived a new captain, established a new tonal direction, and forged a new path for the series. That moment marked the birth of Captain James T. Kirk, and as fans universally know, the rest became Star Trek history. It's a curious thought that one individual's off-screen opinion might have irrevocably altered the entire future of a burgeoning franchise, a legacy that lives on despite Jeffrey Hunter never returning to Star Trek. His foundational role as Captain Pike was far from forgotten. In The Menagerie, fans witnessed a compelling conclusion for his character. Pike was depicted as older, gravely injured, and unable to communicate, yet still revered as a formidable leader. Later, other talented actors embraced the role. Sean Kenny embodied the injured Pike, and Anson Mount magnificently resurrected the character in the newer series Star Trek Strange New Worlds. However, none of this would have transpired without Hunter's original, impactful performance. His initial interpretation of Captain Pike showcased a style of leadership distinct from Kirk's serious, emotional, and possessing a quiet, resolute strength. The Cage became an indispensable element of Star Trek history and indeed, a significant what-if moment in television history. What if Hunter had remained? What if Roddenberry had retained him as the lead? Would Star Trek have ascended to the same global phenomenon it became? No one can definitively answer these questions, But one thing is certain: his sudden departure profoundly shaped the show. And while fans continue to debate the true reasons behind his non-return, all indications point back to those contentious behind-the-scenes struggles, particularly involving his wife. As Nimoy articulated, the demands were simply too much, and Shatner made it unequivocally clear. Apparently, there were problems with Jeffrey, but afterward. So, whether it was a matter of scheduling conflicts, a desire for control, or personality clashes, it is evident that Jeffrey Hunter's exit was not a mere simple choice. It was a watershed moment that forever transformed Star Trek. What really happened during the screening? When producers at Desilu attempted to persuade Jeffrey Hunter to return for a second Star Trek pilot, events did not unfold as anticipated. Oscar Katz, then one of the top executives, recalled Hunter and his wife attending a screening of the first pilot, The Cage. Katz, with his keen eye, could discern from their demeanor that someone in that room didn't like what they saw. He stated that at least one of them hated it. Shortly after the screening, Katz was informed that Hunter did not wish to return to the show. Initially, Katz presumed this was a negotiating tactic, believing Hunter was attempting to secure a more lucrative deal. Consequently, Katz instructed the business team to continue discussions with Hunter's agent. However, after several weeks, no progress was made. Talks were unraveling, and everyone's patience was wearing thin. Katz eventually declared, "One day I said, well, forget it. We'll sign another lead. Forget the $645,000 worth of film." This meant they were prepared to absorb the significant financial loss incurred on The Cage and simply move forward with a new lead actor. However, not everyone agrees on this specific detail of the story. Another account comes from Herb Solow and producer Robert H. Justman in their book Inside Star Trek: The Real Story. They claimed that Hunter never appeared for the screening at all. Only his wife attended. They alleged that after the credits rolled, she stood up and delivered a concise verdict. This is not the kind of show Jeff wants to do, and besides, it wouldn't be good for his career. Jeff Hunter is a movie star. The book did make one minor factual error, referring to her as Sandy, when her actual nickname was Dusty. Even with this small mistake, it highlights the divergent recollections surrounding that pivotal moment. Still, one piece of evidence definitively proves that a screening involving Hunter was intended, an invitation personally sent by Gene Roddenberry to Hunter himself. In the letter, Roddenberry conveyed that while the network expressed interest in Star Trek, they felt a little nervous because it was such an unusual idea. But the full story of Roddenberry's efforts did not end there. Roddenberry's letters tell a different side. Gene Roddenberry genuinely desired for Hunter to remain with the show. In his letter to the actor, he wrote, "In any case, I think it is important that you see the film." He elaborated that they might need to convene for discussion soon, and such a meeting would be unproductive unless Hunter had seen the final cut. Roddenberry appeared hopeful, still endeavoring to convince the actor to give Star Trek a genuine chance. Later, when Roddenberry learned of Hunter's decision, it wasn't even communicated to him directly. Someone else delivered the news. Roddenberry then dispatched another letter, writing, "I am told you have decided not to go ahead with Star Trek." He added, "This has to be your decision, of course, and I must respect it." There was no discernible anger or drama in his response. He emphasized that he harbored no grudge or ill feelings, and pledged to continue to reflect publicly and privately the high regard I learned for you during the production of our pilot. Roddenberry maintained a remarkably calm and respectful demeanor, even though this decision fundamentally altered the future of Star Trek forever. But why did Hunter, or more likely his wife, choose to walk away from something with such immense potential? According to writer James Van Hise, author of The Man Who Created Star Trek, it may have boiled down to a singular belief. He wrote that Hunter's wife convinced the actor that science fiction was beneath him. She believed it was not a suitable genre for an actor of Jeffrey Hunter's stature. Sadly, this may have been a significant miscalculation. By that point in his career, Hunter's most prominent movie roles were already behind him. He had starred in notable films like The Searchers and King of Kings, but his career trajectory was slowing. He tragically passed away just a few years later in 1969, and The Cage remains his sole Star Trek appearance. Nevertheless, his brief but impactful role left an indelible mark on the franchise. Many years later, a new actor would bring Captain Pike back to life, metaphorically passing the torch to a new generation of Star Trek. Thanks to the judicious reuse of The Cage footage in The Menagerie, the character of Captain Pike officially became an integral part of Star Trek's rich history. Consequently, when new Star Trek shows were developed, it made perfect sense to revisit the character. Anson Mount was acutely aware of the magnitude of the role he was undertaking. He wasn't merely playing any character, he was assuming the mantle of a character who had only appeared once but held profound significance for longtime fans. And this is where the story takes an emotional turn. Jeffrey Hunter's son, Chris Hunter, born in 1952, was the child of Jeffrey and his first wife, Barbara Rush. Jeffrey later married Joan Bartlett, the same woman who attended the screenings and reportedly made the contentious demands. That marriage ended in divorce in 1967. Hunter remarried again in 1969, just 3 months before his sudden passing. However, Chris Hunter always cherished his father's connection to Star Trek, and when Anson Mount stepped into the iconic role of Captain Pike, Chris bestowed upon him his full blessing. According to a 2025 article from Popverse, Chris attended Comic-Con in 2018 while Mount was conducting press interviews for Discovery. He personally conveyed to Mount his belief that his father would have approved of his casting. This heartfelt endorsement meant a great deal to Mount. He later stated at a convention, "I absolutely knew I'm an old-school Trekker. I know that it's more than a TV show for a lot of people." He understood the profound importance of treating the character with the utmost respect, and he did so admirably. Mount's rendition of Captain Pike infused new vitality into the character while simultaneously honoring Jeffrey Hunter's original, groundbreaking performance. Even though Hunter only appeared in a single episode, his enduring presence is still felt today, his son's approval serving as a powerful testament to that legacy. And now, a character that almost faded into obscurity is once again at the very heart of the Star Trek universe, all thanks to a decision made nearly 6 decades ago and the complex, behind-the-scenes story of why the original captain ultimately walked away. Do you believe Jeffrey Hunter made a mistake by leaving Star Trek, or was it the right career move for him at that specific juncture? And if he had remained, do you think Captain Pike could have achieved the same iconic status as Captain Kirk? Share your insights in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.